Hey, this week in Israel we read Parshat Behaalotecha, and there's something very interesting and very pertinent to us now after Chag Shavuot that I'd like to share with you. So I want to begin with the end where we're told that Miriam and Aaron spoke Lashon Hara, bad, something evil speech, about Moshe, and we're told that they spoke about him because of this Isha Kushit, of this wife that he took, and they said, doesn't God speak to us also? And then we're told that God heard, and his answer was, Moshe is the most humble man that exists on this earth. There's none like him. So the question is, what were they saying? What's God answering? How's that mesh the answer with the question? So the Mefarshim explained to us that they said that Moshe separated from his wife because he needed to be holy at all times, because God spoke to him at any given moment, and so he needed to be pure. And Miriam and Aaron were like, what's the deal? I mean, we speak to God. We're prophets also. We don't have to separate from our spouses. Why does Moshe think he's any better? That was the essence of this speech about Moshe. And God's answer is he's more humble than anybody. What's that mean? So people will like say, well, that's why God chose to appear to him at any given time. That's why he had the highest level of prophecy, because he was the most humble person that there was, and therefore God chose him to be the recipient of this face-to-face prophecy that nobody else ever had or ever would have. But I think that's a little backward thinking, and I'll tell you why. If you look at the story where God chose Moshe and he came to him, and people like to discuss this and point this out, that this is proof that he's the most humble, because God kept trying to push him to go and to be the leader, to be the redeemer of the people. And Moshe kept refusing. But that's the example that they want to use to show that he's the most humble, that he didn't want this high position. But the truth is, if you look, it says that God was very angry at Moshe for this. So it doesn't seem like God would choose Moshe for something that really angered him. If he was angry by this was not the reason. And I think that God chose Moshe because Moshe showed leadership qualities, that he was willing to stand up for what was right for this people, that he didn't have to. He was living a cushy life in the palace, and he could have just gotten away with having a good life, living it up, but he didn't. It bothered him. He needed to do what was right. He needed to do what was good, and he was always standing up for that, the underdog, as we see by the well. That's how he got married to his wife in the first place, because the herdsmen were starting up with Yitro's daughters, and he saved them because he could not stand injustice. I think that's why God chose him as a leader. And I think when God is answering that Moshe is Anav Mikol Adam, the reason why that's an answer is not that I picked him because he is the most humble of all people, but because I picked him and I give him prophecy face to face, that he has the most knowledge and the most experience of God than anyone ever. That is what made him the most humble. So the fact that the answer is that Moshe is the most humble is a proof that he experienced God on a whole nother level, because somebody who has that face-to-face experience, who sees the glory of God in a way that Moshe did, there is no room for ego. There is no room for haughtiness. He's enlightened. He sees, he understands himself in the context of God, in the context of the world, in the context of other people. He's gotten that from his experience of God face to face, and he is humbled by his experience of God, and therefore he doesn't have that ego, and it didn't bother him when they spoke Lashon Hara. And the beautiful thing that we know it didn't bother him at all is because Miriam got Sara'at for speaking Lashon Hara. And what did Moshe say? Moshe said, Kelna Rafana La, please God, heal her. And, at first glance, it made me think, like, why doesn't he say my sister? Why doesn't he say Miriam? La seems a little bit like maybe he is upset. Heal her. But then I realized that that's not the case at all. I think what he was saying is, this is not my sister. This is not the person with Sarat, the person who's suffering, the person who did something wrong. It's not her intent. Heal this person who has that ailment. Because I know that's not my sister, God. I know that's just a momentary lapse of understanding. So heal her and put her back to the position that she's at. Let her be the great Miriam that I know she is. And I think there's another lesson in here that's really important for us, and that is that Miriam might have made this mistake in judgment, because if you think about it, what she's saying is that Moshe separated from his wife, and that's not the correct thing to do. And perhaps she thought that was right because she made that judgment earlier on with her parents, when her parents separated, because Paro was killing all the male babies, and she said, well, what you're doing is wrong because you are stopping females from being born. Why destroy all of the nation when Paro is just destroying some of them? So perhaps she thought this was the right thing again. But the lesson from that is twofold. A lot of times I see this with people. First of all, your brother is not your father. As much similarities as you think you might see from one to the other, you have to know that each person is an individual and does things for different reasons, even though if it looks the same. And another thing is you have to analyze every single situation as it comes. It could even be the same person, but the answer that was good years back doesn't mean the answer is good still today. We need to reassess. We need to look at every situation as it comes our way and say, is this the appropriate answer for today? I know it was right yesterday, but that means nothing. Each decision has to be looked at on its own merit and understood in that way. And that's very important lesson that we need to take with us. And I want to discuss also in the Parsha some other things, and I hope to put that on another video on YouTube because I don't want this to be too lengthy. So if you want to check out another idea, you can check it out on YouTube in a little while. Shabbat Shalom.